Hello, friends. One of the main controversies right now is whether consciousness is an emergent property of matter, in this case, matter being the brain, or is consciousness fundamental and matter is a perceptual activity in consciousness. That's basically the conversation that's going on the internet at the moment. So here is the way I'm thinking about this. The idea that consciousness is emergent, again, very popular amongst materialists, is also an experience in consciousness, correct? So consciousness as emergent and matter as fundamental are themselves the contents of experience. How could it not be? Within consciousness, not as something outside or prior to it. So from a non-dual or idealist lens, what is called matter is a stable, consensual interpretation of pattern perceptual activity in consciousness, rather than a self-standing stuff that generates consciousness from outside. So even what we call emergence as an idea is an experience in consciousness. I know this sounds complicated, but bear with me. In contemporary materialism, emergent consciousness usually means that when physical processes, for example, neural networks, reach a certain complexity, subjective experience appears as a higher level property. And this is usually framed as either weak emergence, which is fully explainable in physical terms, or strong emergence requiring new fundamental laws linking physical states to experience. How would we address this from a non-local perspective? This is how we would address it. The entire idea, consciousness emerges from matter, is itself a thought image arising in consciousness as a particular conceptual narrative. The supposed physical processes are known only as patterns of experience, measurements, brain scans, equations, and verbal descriptions all appearing in awareness. So in this view, emergentism is not wrong as a descriptive model within the play of appearances. It simply misreads its own ontological status. Ontological status means status of being, starting from scratch. So it simply misreads its own ontological status, taking a conceptual pattern in experience as a story about what exists outside experience. So idealists and non-dual traditions argue that what we call matter is how consciousness organizes and stabilizes regularities of experience into a shared world image. Physical objects in this view are structured clusters of sensations and perceptions and conceptual inferences, not self-subsistent entities beyond consciousness. So here are the key points. Different observers, perspectives, and instruments yield different phenomenal presentations of the same object, which suggests that objecthood is an invariant pattern abstracted from varying experiences. The physical world is thus a model, an economical way to codify the dependent regularities in the field of experience, rather than a separately existing substance that must somehow produce experience. Matter is a substance, doesn't work. So-called matter is what persistent law-like patterns of perception are called once consciousness interprets them as an external, mind-independent reality. So what happens when we reverse the explanatory direction? Materialist emergentism attempts to explain consciousness in terms of matter, treating experience as a late arriving property of complex systems. The non-dual reversal treats consciousness as primitive, ontological primitive, and matter as one of its structured appearances, a mode of representation within consciousness itself. So on this reversal, the hard problem of how matter gives rise to experience dissolves, because experience is no longer derived from something non-experiential. The real explanatory task becomes how and why does consciousness present itself as if there were a mind-independent material world on which consciousness is a secondary product. In that sense, both consciousness is emergent and matter is fundamental, are seen as stories that consciousness tells within itself, self-interpretations of awareness appearing as thoughts, perceptions, and scientific models in the same luminous field. So consciousness is not that picture is in consciousness. So if this resonates with you, let's do a little meditation. Let the body settle. Allow the eyes to close or soften. Feel the simple fact that experience is already here. Notice there is a quiet field in which everything is appearing right now. Sensations, sounds, thoughts, images, subtle moods. All of it is somehow given at once in awareness. Now gently bring attention to the feeling of the body sitting or lying. No need to change them. Just notice pressure, warmth, tingling, breathing. Feel contact with the chair or floor. Feel the rise and fall of breath. Notice sounds in the room or outside. All of these are appearances in this open field of knowing. Let this very simple idea come in. There is experience and there is the knowing of experience. Without using the word consciousness as an idea, sense directly the fact of knowing, the sheer presence in which everything shows up. Rest as that. Now let's see matter as a mode of perception. Bring to mind something you usually call matter. Maybe a chair or microphone. Okay. The walls. Your phone. Maybe the floor. You do not have the chair itself. You have sensations. You do not see the chair itself. That's a construct. Okay, that's an interpretation. You have sensations, pressure, texture, temperature. You do not have the wall itself. You have a visual image, color, shape, light, and shadow. Gently inquire without forcing an answer. Apart from these sensations and images, where is matter found? Can you find a solid reality that is not appearing as experience? Notice that chair, wall, room, world are names given to stable patterns of perception. They are interpretations of this shimmering display of seeing, touching, hearing. Let the sense arise that matter is not outside of experience, but is how experience organizes itself into familiar forms. Relax any effort to hold the world out there. Let everything be simply this: colors, sounds, sensations, thoughts, all floating in a single seamless loop. Now gently invite the concept consciousness is emergent from matter. Let this sentence appear in the mind like a cloud in the sky. Notice the words of that idea appear as thoughts in awareness. Images of brains, neurons, or atoms appear as pictures in awareness. Even the feeling this is true or this is false is another sensation in awareness. So ask quietly, the belief that consciousness is emerging from the brain, this belief that consciousness emerges from the brain, where is it happening? Is it not appearing right now as a movement in consciousness? Feel how any theory, materialist, spiritual, scientific, religious, shows up the same way as thoughts, images, feelings, all arising within this open presence that you are. Let the weight of theory soften. They're just shifting shapes in the same luminous space. Now, instead of following thoughts about the world, turn attention back to the knowing itself. Not what is known, but the fact that it is known. And ask gently and wordlessly, what is aware of this breath? What is aware of these thoughts, these images, this sound? Can awareness itself be seen as an object? Look carefully. The body is known. Sensations are known. Emotions are known. Thoughts like me, word, matter, mind are known. But the knower itself, this clear awake presence, does not come and go with the contents. When the thought consciousness is fundamental and it appears, it is known. The same silent light is aware of both. Rest as this light. Let the sense deepen that all positions, all explanations are weights. This aware presence is the ocean. Now, very gently, let the boundary between inside and outside soften. The sound of the room is appearing. The feeling of the body is appearing. The thought, I am here, is appearing. The image of the world out there is appearing. All of this is one undivided tapestry of experience, without a hard line through the middle. Allow the possibility that there is only this single seamless field of appearing. And what you call me, body, world are patterns within it. Sense how the notion of a tiny emergent consciousness relaxes into a vast, boundless knowing. There is just this known, and whatever is known as one indivisible habit. For a few breaths, drop all views. Not matter is fundamental, not consciousness is emergent, not even consciousness is fundamental. Let there be only this bare, wordless presence. Breath moving, sounds arising, thoughts flickering, all self-liberating as they appear. Notice that this presence does not need a theory to be what it is. It does not need confirmation. It is already complete before any description. Abide as that for a minute or more, simply returning each time you drift into story to the felt immediacy of awareness itself. Begin to notice the physical room again. Feel the contacts of the body. Hear the surrounding sounds. And as you do, see if you can keep a trace of this understanding. What is called matter is the way experience arranges itself into stable appearances. What is called consciousness is not something hiding later, which is the open space in which every idea of earlier and later arises. Theories about consciousness are themselves experiences in consciousness, like drawings on the surface of a mirror that never itself becomes stained. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. Let the ordinary world reappear as colors, shapes, movements in the same clear, aware field. Let you on. Recognize nothing has left awareness, nothing has ever been outside it. Remain as you go about your day, as the quiet, effortless knowing in which both matter and mind, both self and world, rise like waves in a single boundless. I know this was complex, but come back to this again and again and recognize that the brain, the body, the mind, and the universe are all interpretations of the self knowing itself, reflections of the self